Feedback, a program designed to answer questions about issues and concerns which face our society today. Feedback with Bob Hoskins presents both sides of every issue. Join us now for today's edition of Feedback.
The debate between evolutionists and creationists has been going on for, well, more than 125 years. More recently, it is being brought back into a little sharper focus by the publishing of a popular book. Interestingly enough, the book that supports the evolution theory was not written by a scientist, but by a popular television preacher. He's on television 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, and he has an enormous influence over what Americans believe, and maybe more importantly, how Americans behave. The book titled The Human Animal was authored by television host Phil Donahue. Will you please give a good feedback welcome to Mr. Phil Donahue? And may I say, Phil, thank you for coming. I read your book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I found it chock full of enormous research and just incredible kinds of things. And obviously from reading the book, you truly believe that man is, I think, what you call the super deluxe model of animal that has descended down through the evolutionary process, right?
That's true. I think man is a part of what I believe to be a divinely inspired outline or architecture of creation. I don't think we are a separate decision by God. I think my appreciation for God and my wonder about God is enhanced by the limited, and I must say to you, I cannot present myself as a scientist, the limited understanding and appreciation I have for evolution.
So you, let's get right here at the top. You don't, you're not an agnostic.
No.
No.
Oh, no, I don't.
You believe you see God in the evolutionary process.
I do.
Yeah.
In fact, I think he breathes more fully and in a more meaningful way for me.
As a matter of fact, I think you said somewhere God is complemented.
I think Charles Darwin's theory flatters God.
Yeah. Well, it might surprise you, or maybe on the other hand it doesn't surprise you, that there's still a lot of unbelievers out there.
Doesn't surprise me.
And among those unbelievers, there are a few scientists. I want to introduce Dr. Duane Gish. He is, I guess, an authority on this subject of creation science and evolution. He is the author of several books, including one called The Challenge of the Fossil Record. Will you please welcome Dr. Duane Gish? Did I say Gish or Fish?
Well, I usually refer to the theory of evolution as the fish to Gish theory, so we understand what we're talking about.
Yeah. So the idea that man came from fish to ape to Gish, you don't follow that. You don't buy that.
As a scientist, I find that notion scientifically untenable. The historical record, the fossil record, is absolutely contradictory to that notion. It's remarkably in accord with the concept of creation, as we find each basic type of animal or plant appears in the fossil record suddenly fully formed without the transitional forms that are required by evolution.
Maybe I should break in here, and for lay people like myself, maybe we ought to give just some brief definition of these two positions. Basically, Phil, define for us, basically, evolution.
All right, I should say that you could find someone with a lot more academic credentials, insight, and basic talent than I have to do this. I will tell you from my limited exposure to the scholarship that's out there now what I believe, and what as imperfectly as it might be expressed, what is believed by the majority of the scientific community, that all life evolves according to the environment in which it finds itself trying to thrive, and that throughout the millennia, throughout the millions and years of evolution, mutations take place and certain species branch off to form their own biological expression of life. And they, in fact, either become extinct or move on to the kind of life forms that we see today: reptiles, birds, mammals, entomology, insects. And somewhere along the way happened the single most magnificent natural selection of all, the human animal. Our brains are the Hall of Fame natural selection. There is nothing else in all of creation, as far as we know, that is quite the same, quite as majestic, quite as awesome as is the human brain. Our ability to imagine, to foresee, to see ahead. I think that itself reflects the presence of the divinity and the evolutionary
story. Let me get back to Duane, and how do you describe the creationists?
Well, the creation scientist says, based upon the scientific laws and processes which now govern the universe, that it's absolutely physically impossible that the universe could have created itself, that life could have arisen spontaneously on this planet.
I didn't say that, Doctor. I didn't say that. Please, I'm going to have enough trouble in this audience. Please don't argue against something I didn't say.
Well, I'm talking about the theory of evolution.
I don't think life created itself.
Okay, tell me what you as a creationist believe happened.
Yes.
Not right now countering what Phil has said.
You see, we have to state what evolutionists
In other words,
believe.
how did man get here, in your opinion? How did life begin?
Man was created as man.
As a whole man.
That's correct. And life was created. It did not evolve through some combination of physical and chemical processes which are still operating today, as evolutionists maintain. That's physically impossible. It could not have happened even if the Earth were billions of times longer than 5 billion years. And the evidence indicates...
But Duane, you have probably the preponderance of scientists across the world that disagree with you, that believe, as Phil believes, that this did happen in that way.
That's correct.
And isn't the majority, shouldn't the majority be ruled correct?
Absolutely not, because the majority has been shown repeatedly to be wrong in science. And we've got to remember, and this is very, very important, Bob, as Theodosius Dobzhansky, one of the world's leading evolutionists, said, the philosophy that dominates our scientific establishment, our biological establishments, that is a materialist, mechanistic philosophy, and that guides their thinking. You see, to a scientist, now, Phil, in his book, quotes repeatedly Stephen Jay Gould of Harvard University.
Yes.
That's his leading authority. Stephen Jay Gould is an atheist. He has no choice. He must believe in evolution. And therefore, he proposes evolutionary theory.
Let me ask Phil what your response is, because this is what so many who follow the creation science teaching say, Phil. They say, well, evolution is really sort of the result of agnostic atheists who didn't want to believe in God, and so they've sort of invented this Grimm's fairy tale.
Right.
Well, you've got a lot of that in your book. That
I think creationists are saying, if I were God, that's not how I do it. I think there's pride in creationists, in creationism. Creationists are saying, we're so special. We're so above all the other life forms. We're so great. We're the king of the hills here. That God made a special intervention to create us. All those other lower lives, all these other kind of stupid life forms out there, we're the best. The irony is that our value and our ability to know God and to work and to act in His name, in my view, is enhanced by the research that's out there and that enables us to appreciate how we are a part of the rest of God's plan for life.
From the book, Phil, you somehow feel, correct me if I'm wrong, but somehow I get the idea that you feel that if we all accept the evolutionist theory of creation, that it is going to have some enormous effect on our behavior. It'll make a great difference in our behavior.
I think to accept our place in what I believe, I do not insist everyone agree with me, in what is for me a personal conviction that this is divinely inspired.
Yeah.
I don't think this is an accident.
Yeah.
I am impressed with the universe. Wow, all these bodies flying around, the orbits, the order of the universe. What a magnificent, to see God in a grain of sand. I think enables us all, encourages us all to explore further what it is we already know, and we should turn our children on to this.
Would you say, go ahead,
Bob,
Dwayne.
I have two comments here. Phil has stated his belief this is a marvelous universe, a tremendously complex universe. What he doesn't understand about the theory of evolution said that this has happened naturally, that we are here as a result of genetic mistakes. As Lauren Isley has said, man is here as a result of millions of DNA accidents. Yeah. That's what evolution is. It's not a divinely guided process. It is a process based on mutations, which are genetic accidents, almost all of which, and I believe all are bad, but certainly most of which are bad, creating all kinds of genetic diseases. And Phil believes that somehow God used such a process to create man when he could have created man instantaneously if he wanted to. Why would he use such a wasteful, inefficient method in his creation?
But do you see anything wasteful or inefficient about
that is contrary to the attributes
Phil?
of God.
Yeah, you see what's happening here? Dr. Gish, and I love you, and I'll tell you this, you better be there when I get to heaven. I think what you're saying, you are making my point. You are saying if I were God, I wouldn't do it this way. You're saying I, Dr. Gish, have a more efficient way to do this. Why did God waste so much time? How come he took all those millions of years? Why didn't he just go Zappo and there we were?
Why would he use millions and millions of genetic accidents, genetic mistakes, which are harmful, which have led to this so-called struggle for existence, and all of that sort of thing, and all of this to create.
Okay,
it just seems to me inconsistent.
I want to get this audience. This audience, they're rabid out here. They're waiting to go.
Good.
Yes.
Mr. Donahue, before we get off onto this, I like to keep things in order too. I needed to know, first of all, did you use the Bible as one of your sources of research? And how do you feel about the Bible as God's holy word?
I think the Bible is a very important book. I think it's a very valuable reflection of the histories of civilizations. And I respect very much the millions of people who see the Bible as God's word. I happen to believe that the Bible, like our newspaper, is the attempt on the part of finite men to record what they believe to be God's will. And I respect...
You don't believe then, Phil, that the word was divinely inspired to man?
I don't happen to believe that this book is absolutely, without qualification, everything that God intends for us. Not because I think God would purposely dupe us, but because I understand the finite nature of the human animal, and that however high the purpose in sharing with me God's will, when we send it through a human being, we are inevitably going to set ourselves up for certain misunderstandings and errors. I ask you to respect my interest in continuing the pursuit, in asking questions, in wondering about the universe, without being considered somehow alienated from God. And I promise you, I will never get in your way, in your interest in believing that it is the divine inspired word of God.
Well, I would certainly support and encourage you to research. But onto your point that creationists are too proud, I feel that they are really humble in that they are willing to look at what Jesus said. He said in his parable of Abraham and Lazarus that if people won't believe what Moses told them, he said they have Moses. If people won't believe what Moses told them, they wouldn't believe it if someone came back from the dead and told them things of God. Right. Now in Genesis, Moses said 10 times on one page and 3 or 4 times in one verse, I counted it once, that living things were created according to their kinds, with seed in them, each according to their kinds, and that you won't expect any transitional forms. And when Mr. Gish produces that evidence from evolutionist literature, I think it's pretty convincing.
Yeah, you want to respond to that, Phil, or you want?
No, I accept his.
Okay,
conviction.
yeah.
If it's true, the evolutionary point that we are the product of 10 million years of evolution, okay?
More than that.
A lot more than that.
Whatever it may be. Where are the transitional forms in the fossil record then? There should be tens of millions of evidences, you know, in the fossil or the rock record. Where is it?
Well, there are gaps in the fossil record. There's no doubt about that.
Yes, there are gaps, and these gaps are enormous. Let me point out one gap.
What do the gaps
Phil.
prove?
Let me tell you. We have a great variety of complex invertebrates, sea urchins, sea cucumbers, sponges, and things like that.
Right.
And we have fishes.
Right.
Now, the evolution says that one of these invertebrates evolved into fishes during 100 million years of time.
Right.
That would have left billions times billions times billions of intermediate forms.
Mm-hmm. Where
Our
are they?
museum should be just loaded with these intermediate forms, but we've never found one. Every major kind of fish we know anything about has had its origins firmly based in nothing. All of a sudden, we have fishes.
Yeah.
Now, if evolution is true, why, in all that 100 million years of evolution, do we have a trace of an intermediate form in the fossil record showing what invertebrate evolved into fishes and how that evolution took place? There's a huge gap, a mammoth gap, and it's characteristic of the fossil record.
Duane, is that primarily the subject of your book?
That's primarily the subject
the gap
of my
of
book,
the fossil
Evolution,
record,
the Challenge of the Fossil
Yes, ma'am.
Record.
I was going to address the same issue. It sort of ties into the same thing. But first of all, Phil, welcome to South Florida.
Thank you.
I religiously watch your show.
I'm pleased to know that.
And in spite of what you say about us Bible believers, sometimes we still love you.
I appreciate you saying
Okay,
so. I
wanted
hope
you
I
to
have
know.
not indicated that I don't love you.
Okay, well, we do love you. Just wanted to ask, why isn't there some evidence of a transition between species that's going on? Why don't we even see that? Of course, not just in the fossil record. Why doesn't that happen today, that species can either interrelate with one another or one species even change and evolve into another one even today?
Yeah, okay. Phil?
Well, I think what we have is there's no doubt about it, there are gaps in the record. But we certainly have fossil finds which indicate primitive man, prehistoric man. Lucy is the evidence of the beginning of the human condition several thousand years ago. And the fact that there are gaps in the fossil record does not make the creationist point.
Phil, Lucy's sort of she's one of the cast of characters in your book, but Duane, you have a totally different sort of idea about Sister Lucy than...
Yes.
Was she human?
No, absolutely not.
She was not human.
No, she was not. And her fellow creatures. A number
Was she
of
an
those
ape or
been
what was
found.
she?
She was an ape. Now, the consensus, I agree with Phil, the consensus among evolutionists was that Lucy, although she was ape from the neck up, she walked erect in the human manner. But there are a number of scientists who are not creationists, they're evolutionists. Charles Oxnard, University of Southern California, Lord Zuckerman, a very famous British anatomist who studied these fossils for many, many years using the most sophisticated methods of analysis, said that those creatures did not walk upright, they are not intermediate between ape and man, and they certainly are not ancestral to man.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Donahue, you said earlier that, in your opinion, our brain was the Hall of Fame of natural selection.
I think so.
I'm a science teacher and now a private Christian school, and it occurs to us that as we're listening to the talk between you two and we're able to discuss our differences, that the students in our public schools cannot really evaluate. Now, I'd just like to make a statement that our brain is the most complex organism known anywhere in the universe.
Right.
And your belief is that it's the Hall of Fame of natural selection, right?
Yes.
We presume.
Well, we're
Dr.
both saying
Gish
the same thing, aren't
If
we?
I could finish. Dr. Gish would say it's a special created organism, not coming from something subhuman. And why can't our public school students have a chance to listen to such a discussion like this? It's a valid issue. We have a fact, and we have different interpretations, and we're discussing it here.
Right.
Why not in public schools?
Is evolution exposed to your students?
In our school, yes, it is. As a matter of fact, we do a dual treatment of both creation and evolution. Some of the students are here, as a matter of fact. And at the end of the discussion, they're encouraged to write their own thoughts, their own opinions, evaluate the evidence. And I really can't do that. I've taught in other schools. The main reason why I'm teaching in a private Christian school is the opportunity to do that.
Well,
I have more freedom to teach both views in this school than I would in the school that I was educated in
Right.
back in...
Okay, let's get Phil's response to that.
I admire very much what you're doing. I think a lot of us are out here complaining, and you're out there doing. I appreciate it very much. It's clear you care about our children. I ask you to believe that so do I. I am asking you, I am saying, please don't deny our children the majesty of the literature, the scholarship, and the follow-on work of Charles Darwin, a God-fearing Christian man who lived in England in the middle.
I'm sorry, Phil.
But Phil,
Darwin ended up,
Phil, let me
for
ask,
all purposes, an atheist.
Aren't the public schools, Phil, according to this teacher's experience and statement, are the public schools sort of denying the other side of this coin?
I think you've been very effective. No other country on earth, certainly no other Western developed country, has as difficult a time teaching this essential view of science as does the American education system. And I think in so doing, we are depriving our children of some of the most magnificent evidence available for the existence of God. And that's what bothers me.
Would you agree that both viewpoints should be taught? That my scientific evidence for creation, as long as what you believe to be the scientific evidence for evolution, that this should be taught in our tax-supported public schools and our pluralistic democratic society, that both viewpoints should be presented objectively and
okay, you made your point, Duane. Let him answer it.
No Bible.
No, I do. I think it's a religion, and I think that the minute that this kind of religion is offered in a public school curriculum, then the Ayatollah followers can come along and decide they have a new interpretation of it.
Let me make, first of all, I want to quote from your book.
Okay.
The final statement you make in your book. Cheers to us, cheers to our future, to greater tolerance and freer inquiry, to more accommodation and fewer showdown. Now, you do not want to grant that to the creation scientists. You do not want to give us the academic freedom and religious freedom to go in our tax-supported public schools and teach scientific evidence. You want to deny us that, but you believe the religion of Stephen Jay Gould, he's a Marxist atheist, and his religion and all of those, that should be taught in our public schools. You are not against the teaching of religion. The thing is, you want your religion to be taught in the schools.
All right.
And I say we should,
okay, give Phil a chance to respond. I just got the idea you're outnumbered right now, Phil. I guess you knew that. Go ahead.
Yes, I did. Dr. Gish, I don't know whether you're presuming to know what Stephen Jay Gould is in his heart is necessarily tolerant. You've called him now an atheist. I'm almost finished. You've also called Charles Darwin an atheist.
He ended up an atheist.
This is first of all, in good old free America, what a person is none of your business. How I worship
I agree.
is my business.
And my religious is none of your business either when it comes to science.
But I've not called you names. I have not suggested that you're an atheist. I've not suggested that somehow you're separated from God.
But
I haven't set myself up
Phil,
on this lofty
you said you didn't want my
platform.
religion taught in the schools. I don't want my religion taught in the schools either. I don't want teachers to go in the classrooms and teach the book of Genesis or to teach the Bible. I don't want that. First of all, I wouldn't agree with the way they teach it, mostly. But, and furthermore, I do not want the philosophy and religion of these evolutionists.
Wait a minute, Duane. You said you don't want Genesis account taught in the school. Is that what you said?
That's right.
Okay.
I want the scientific evidence that supports creation to be presented in a fair and unbiased manner, along with the evidence for evolution.
Okay.
That's all we're asking.
I want to pick up on that because I think that's an important area for us to cover.
Sure now. Let me.
Wait a minute. We're going to take a short break. We're going to take a short break, and I promise you I'll give you the first chance. Okay. I promise you I'll give you the first chance. We'll be right back in just a moment. Okay, we're back, and I promised Duane that I would let him pick up the minute we came back. I cut you off.
To make clear, my views about Stephen Jay Gould. I tremendously respect...
Oh, wait, that wasn't what you were talking about, your idea about whether Genesis should be used in the schools or not.
And he said perhaps that I had sort of cast aspersions on Stephen Jay Gould. Let me clear that up first. I highly respect Stephen Jay Gould. He has a brilliant mind.
Don't call him an atheist, then, Dr. Gish.
He is...
Don't do that.
Well, he stated that.
That's none of your business.
Well,
no, he hasn't stated that. That's none of your business.
Now, wait a minute.
It's a kind of McCarthyism, Dr.
Mr.
Gish.
Donahue,
when you start...
You start
calling people...
You brought up the matter of religion. I did not bring it up, and I didn't intend to. But when you say that we're trying to teach our religion in the public schools, I must then refer to the religion of the evolutionists.
Okay.
And Stephen Jay Gould, in one of his technical publications, said that his particular view on evolution perhaps was influenced by the fact that he had been raised as a Marxist on his daddy's knee. He put that in the scientific literature, and it's public, you see. So I'm not bringing up anything that's not public.
Okay, let's get the audience
back
in here.
But I respect Stephen Jay Gould and his ability as a
What bothers
scientist.
me the most is the fact that you're talking about the gaps. I mean, if we've been in existence, or life has been in existence for millions of years, is it not true that we've only had several hundred years to investigate? I mean, is it not true that we're still discovering?
Yes, it is.
I think you admit that, don't you, Phil?
Oh, I think there's this much to know, and we know this much.
So how is it possible that we're able to determine from the gaps, or the lack of gaps, where we've come from?
What you mean in spite of the gaps?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
What is it that you want to believe? What makes you feel good? How do you think this all happened here? How did we get to be here, this magnificent life form, this species known as Homo sapiens sapien? What a wonderful thing we are. I mean, think about us. We are something.
Correct.
Now, how did we get here?
Exactly the way that we're discovering it by the show and by other ways of learning. That's the only way that we can discover. I mean, we all have points of view, and we have to take all the information that we gather and disseminate that and figure out.
Yeah. Do you follow Dr. Gish's creationism?
No.
Okay. Can you answer Phil's question? How did we get here?
It's the best way is exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
He's in favor of continual examination. Go ahead.
About man, and Phil makes the point about man in his book. Man, in his human brain, has somewhere between about 100 billion cells, something like that, with somewhere between 100 trillion and 1 quadrillion connections in the human brain.
Right.
Now, Phil believes that happens, that started with hydrogen gas, and by natural processes, including all the genetic mistakes, somehow the human brain has been generated naturally by that way. I think it takes a tremendous faith to believe that. I just can't believe anything so incredible.
Phil, do you deny the ingredient of faith in believing or accepting evolution? You don't call evolution fact.
I don't call
signed, sealed, delivered, finished.
I do not believe that the scholarship available now regarding the origin of life and the evolution of species is complete by any means. I'll just say it one more time. There's this much to know, and we only know this much so far. But in here is information that flatters God that we should share with our children. Don't deprive them of this scholarship. It'll make them better Christians. It'll make them more impressed with God. And it'll help them wonder, and they'll bring their own power that they have as a result of this master plan of God to the business of finding out more.
You do agree, Phil, that they should hear both sides in? Yeah.
No, he does not.
Well, wait, let him answer, Duane. Let him answer for himself.
He said so.
I do not believe that creationism should be taught in public schools. No. The answer is I do not.
The issue here, I have two comments, if I may, is not the issue of what to teach in school is not an issue of religion. It's an issue of freedom. What Dr. Gish is saying is that he should have as much opportunity as the evolutionists to present the creation theory from a scientific viewpoint. Now, whatever you want to call the creator, whether you want to call him Jehovah or the great robot in the sky or whatever you want to call him, is irrelevant. The point is we need to present to the youngsters both sides and let them make the decision themselves.
All right.
The other point.
Let me ask you this question.
I agree 100%.
Good. I ask you this question. There are religions, as you must know, that think blood transfusions are against God's law. You know about that. If I believe that a blood transfusion is against God's law, can I teach that in a public school?
You can teach that there are people who believe that and why they believe that. You don't have to force anyone to